We had so much excitement this morning, we ran a bit over, so I apologize for that, but I think it was well worth it. We had an excitement, more funding, more opportunities for our colleges. What we're going to do this morning is kind of an experiment that Shane actually came up with. For those of you who may not know him, he runs a very successful podcast, which he'll tell you about, and that's been a theme throughout the conference, is using more technology and the way people learn. So I don't want to take up more of our time, but he has agreed to be the moderator. We have a distinguished panel of presidents up here, and it's going to be recorded. So I understand it's going to be edited, so no worries. We want this to be free-flowing. I'm just going to turn it over to you, Shane, and thank our presidents. Just to get some energy in the room, let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. I've been doing this type of work for many years now. Ever since YouTube was created, I've been in that space and creating these types of video to audio podcasts. And this is an exciting opportunity for us to really get the word out about an important component of the NACCE mechanism. The NACCE organization is about the President's Pledge for Entrepreneurship, and I know some of you guys have signed on to the pledge. I also have, you may have noticed, a poll up on the screen. So if you feel inclined, it's not required, but at various points, like right now, I'll actually have people from the audience being polled about different things that are happening, different questions related to the pledge, and I'd love you guys to interact with me and contribute content to what we're doing here. So thank you so much. And what we're going to do to start out with is really, I want to go down the list and really look at the ways that each of the people have thought about the pledge. Give a brief, so here's my take on this whole panel is that in order for an organization to have a direction related to entrepreneurship, it has to come from the president. And that means the folks up here have taken the pledge and are in various states of implementing it. And I want that to be the conversation that we have today around all 5 parts of the pledge, what worked, what hasn't worked, and what ways that it really brings an advantage to their college. With that in mind then, hopefully you've gotten in there, I haven't seen many more people adding to it, but I hope you will as we get into other questions. So here we are. I want to start over with Garrett, and then we'll go down to Johnny. And I'm from the .com world. You'll have to forgive me. I haven't worn a suit in probably 16 years. I've been working in tech for a really long time, so these bright tennis shoes are totally normal. Like, if you don't have bright tennis shoes, you're not in. So just an FYI. That's how it works in my world. So being back in academia, Garrett, I'd love for you to talk just for a second at the very end about what it means for you to have taken the pledge.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Shane. And of course, I do not have colored tennis shoes on, but I will next time, I promise. This pledge was really the catalyst for us at Catawba Valley Community College. When we first started having conversations internal of the organization, it was really interesting how many definitions of entrepreneurship exist out there. And so we really began from the top and worked all the way through the organization of having those critical conversations about how it's different from different departments within the organization, how different interpretations of entrepreneurship are created in the community. And so then we began to connect the dots with it. And if I had not taken the pledge early on, we would not have experienced really the integration and entrepreneurship becoming the fabric of everything that we do in our community. And so it's been the catalyst, and this organization has been a tremendous support throughout, and it's one of those things that you can't just say the words. You've got to live it, and you've got to commit to it, and once you do, the sky's the limit in terms of innovation and what you can create.
Great, and I like to jump around, so I'm going to go with Sherry next, and then Johnny, you're up.
Well, I signed the pledge early on as an early adopter, but these 5 items in this pledge speak to me as a leader. It's really not out front in my institution. We don't have posters about this pledge, but we really live it through integrating it with specifically faculty. I've really chosen to work closely with faculty to move the entrepreneurship agenda forward at our college, at South Mountain Community College. And they have been key in making entrepreneurship come alive at our college. And then the other, even in the interview process, as we change the culture, I'm in my 8th year at South Mountain, I ask questions of faculty, new faculty, like, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? And some of them can't even answer that question. And some of them, are very fluent in what it means to them. And I think it's an introduction, it's like, this is important to me as a president, so in that second interview process, I even ask questions about, what does that mean to you? And so it's an organic process. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished in the 7 years. I'm entering my 8th year at South Mountain. And without NACCE, I would have not been able to move the needle. So thank you, Becky, for your leadership. It's been a great ride, and we will continue at our college.
That's great. And Johnny, please pick up.
Yeah, thank you, Shane. I tell you, creating an entrepreneurial mindset is critical to my state, not just my college, but to my entire state. My good friend back there, Chuck, can attest to this. In the state of West Virginia, there's a fear of going to college. I mean, think about that for a moment. There's a fear of going to college, and creating this, what this has meant to us is getting to people early on, because you have people for generations and generations and generations. You have large manufacturing plants where folks have gotten jobs straight out of high school. So there was no need to, in their minds, there was no need to create their own career. It was predetermined. And now we're at a point in our state when that's not happening. And so now the onus is, it's a great opportunity for us in community colleges to step up and be that engine of social and economic mobility, and that's what we're doing. So this is absolutely wonderful for us, not just for my college, but for the entire state of West Virginia, and transforming the lives of people. So Becky, thank you, and Bree, thank you as well. And the reason I'm thanking Bree is that the community college system in the state of West Virginia, thanks to the urging of myself and Chuck, have all agreed and signed on with Entrepreneurial Leadership Initiative. Next week on my campus, we'll be hosting the 3-day facilitator training for all of the colleges to get involved in. So that's a huge win for us. We're beginning to make those connections of the needs, address the needs of our state. So thank you, Becky, and thank you, Bree, for your support.
That's great. And please, I'm excited to get more feedback from you guys. So if you've taken the pledge, let us know if you've taken the pledge here by just sort of interacting with us. We'll get a sense for whether you're in the process of doing it or whether you have it or not. Steve, I'd love to hear from you. Anything else that you really feel like has taken your organization to a different level because of what the pledge has done, especially when you first started out?
Sure. When I arrived at NIACCE, we'd had one of the 5 entrepreneur centers in the state for 15 years. But it, like many departments, kind of sat on the end of campus in its own building and really wasn't integrated into the leadership and what we did on a regular basis. And I think as I looked at the demographics and really where the college was when I arrived, it was clear if we continued to do things the same way that we were going to continue to be in a decline. And because of some of these principles and us really bringing this into all of our career technical education, into our K-12s, and really trying to spread the word, taking it into our community, we're one of 5 community colleges in the state that actually experienced growth this year. And I believe a lot of that can be attributed to the entrepreneurial creative design thinking that we've put in place to try to deal with our enrollment challenges.
Great. Very good. And Betty, best for last.
Good morning, everyone. Betty Young, Hawking College in Ohio. And for us, a couple of years ago, we went through the process of renewing a strategic plan and evaluating our mission and that type of thing. And it was interesting because we did rewrite our mission, but we didn't change our mission. What we realized was that we knew what we did it really well, but we never really articulated it very well. And so we wrote a mission statement to articulate what we do. And so our new mission statement says we serve as a pathway to prosperity, teaching and inspiring all those who seek to learn, changing lives and building careers. And so, likewise, this President's Pledge for us at Hawking College was a way to articulate our way of being. We've been doing some very entrepreneurial things. Hawking has a long tradition of entrepreneurship that's, you know, kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, been more prominent at our institution sometimes than other times. But what we were able to do by taking the pledge is place that again, like we do our mission, in front of everyone and say, this is our way of being, this is part of our culture, and it's really helped us refocus.
That's great. As we go through each step for the pledge and we talk about the different components, the way this is really going to flow is I want highlights of successes and then really tough things that you've had to overcome to get through that step, that first initial step, whatever it might be, if we're doing number 1, or what it was like to get through number 5. What order did you do them over time? You know, you might talk about certain things like that as it happens. But focus in on those pieces. And as part of this too, I just want to make sure, like I've been doing at various points here, I just want to make sure you guys know that I want your feedback. Like, I want you to tell me and us what you're really looking for. If 100% of you in the room have signed the pledge, then this conversation will be totally different. So if that poll is accurate that we just did, then that's going to send us off in a completely different direction than something if 100% of the people in the, or 50% of the room hasn't actually done that. So please take part here. I'd love to hear from you as far as what you want to learn from this session. You can write a sentence, you can write whatever. I'll be able to see it on my phone, I'll be able to see it here on my screen, and I'll be able to look at those things. They're all anonymous. I've anonymized all this, so you guys don't have to worry about your name showing up any place. But I'd love to get your feedback, so please do that. So going into step number 1, forming teams to focus on entrepreneurship. Let's talk about this for a second. What were the big successes, the things, the big levers that you found as presidents that you could pull to form those teams? And you can start, anyone that feels inspired. Yeah.
Like I said before, my focus on forming a team was with faculty. So I started in July of 2011 at South Mountain as the president, and in 2012 was my first NACCE conference. And Johnny Cupcake happened to be the keynote speaker. Does anyone remember Johnny Cupcakes? Okay. And I think I had 2 or 3 faculty with me and an associate dean at that first conference, and we met a few evenings and talked about how can we bring entrepreneurship back to our college. And they challenged me, said, okay, Sherry, I think you should invite Johnny Cupcake to our convocation next year. I said, okay, I'll help you make that happen. Okay, this was probably the toughest thing that I did in the last 7 years at South Mountain, because I got a lot of heat from doing this with faculty. We invited Johnny Cupcake. We did a student convocation. We'd never done that before. We invited the community to his presentation, and Johnny Cupcake stayed on our campus till 3 a.m. I think it was September 19th, 2013. So the faculty member and I stayed with the crowd till 3 a.m. in the morning, and he talked to every person that wanted to tell their story to him. And so it was very meaningful to the community, to our students, but yet I had a lot of faculty question, why did you spend money on bringing a college dropout to our college? Well, I thought it was about helping people understand what entrepreneurial thinking was all about. What does it look like? You know, it's realized in this person. And so, but that was the starting point of introducing entrepreneurship to our college. And then about in that same year, I was working with the business division because their office suite was very dilapidated, and they were committed to creating an entrepreneurial center. And I said, how about if we do this? Redesign your office suite, take 2 classrooms, and create a center, because it sends the message that we are committed to entrepreneurship on our campus. And we did that. But again, tough thing. Took away 2 classrooms from the faculty to create an entrepreneurship center. Yes, I got a lot of heat, but over time, it's been embraced, and it's made a difference in the community. And the more new faculty that we hire on, it's a normal way of being, is that we honor entrepreneurial thinking at our college, and we support entrepreneurs in our ecosystem at South Mountain.
That's great. Now, I'd love to hear, along those same lines, a real roadblock that you hit and that you needed to overcome when it came to trying to form your teams that would really focus on entrepreneurship at the very beginning, Right, so we'll talk about that for a moment, and then we'll step back on the next question as far as what other times did you find that teams were, again, a challenge or a huge success? So I'd love to hear from Garrett or Johnny if you guys have any feedback in that area.
Well, I think the first big hurdle that we all have to overcome is that community colleges throughout the country are full of big assumptions. And big assumptions do nothing but stifle us and create exceptionally average outcomes. And so you have to identify those big assumptions within your teams. You know, those assumptions such as, well, we never have any money. We can't do that because that's not the way we've done it for 50 years. You've got to address those and have those conversations out there. But those aren't easy conversations because those assumptions are drilled within the fabric of who we are as individuals. Now, I have my own big assumptions. And so I always have to be aware of that and understand that we assess based on sort of a confirmation bias where we have to have proof to do something differently, whereas we need to be assessing based on innovation, which is proven through discovery. And that discovery and understand that it's okay to fail is one of the key elements of being an entrepreneur. You have to understand that it's just fine to fail. Just get up and stay with it and stay committed to it and passionate to it. So the big barrier for us was addressing those big elephants that sit in the rooms of our campuses throughout the nation, and then figuring out ways to get beyond those and to really operate from a frame of discovery rather than a frame of proving what we already know.
A major challenge for us in the state of West Virginia, as I said earlier, is that there's this fear of going to college. And to compound that, my community college has only been an independent freestanding community college for 10 years. The entire community college system in West Virginia, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, is less than, 15 years old, you would say? And how the community colleges were formed in the state of West Virginia is that all of the community colleges were departments within a university. So think about that for a second. So you're a community college, you're a department of a university, and somewhere along the line, the leaders of the state said, okay, we're gonna separate this community college from this university as a department and have it freestanding, but in this separation, we're gonna take four-year people and put them over leading community college people. So for the past 3.5 years at my institution, what I've been doing is slowly but surely implementing creating a culture on my campus of what a community college, what it means to be a community college. And so you have, and then Chuck and this, and so we've been, he and my school in Eastern, at Chuck's school, we've been out front and being innovative, and we've had quite a bit of success in terms of forming partnerships and not only locally, but nationally and those types of things, and others are beginning to take notice. And so now we're at a point where we can move forward with this. So the biggest challenge for us was getting people to dream about and understand what it's meant to be a community college. And that's a huge hurdle. I know my former president is in the audience here, Dr. Massey, and I remember back when I was working at Indian River, he used to say all the time about this thing about culture. And he was saying this, I'm a young math hotshot, thought I was the best math professor in the world, and he would occasionally pull me in and talk to me about this bigger picture of culture and understanding that. And boy, Dr. Massey, I got my lesson. So thank you for instilling in me seeing a bigger picture of understanding what it meant by culture. So changing that culture, it's a huge challenge for us. And I think we're at a point now where people are believing that we can do some creative things.
So just to drill in just a little bit here, Donnie, is it having meetings that does this? Is it building certain strategic partnerships between components of external partners? Like, what was it for you when you talk about forming teams that really focus on entrepreneurship? And how did you introduce this E-word to the college?
I think just all of the above. I think you have to, people, as Garrett was talking about, people will say, well, that's not going to, let me put it this way. When I arrived at Pierpont, the conversations was, when I would bring up a new ideal, oh, that won't work. We don't have the money. I mean, it was all of that. And I remember something that Dr. Massey taught me a long, long time ago about having an abundance mentality. So our mentality was not that. We were at the point of thinking, oh, we don't deserve that, or we can't have that. So we always started out from a negative perspective, then opposed to looking at it from a positive perspective. And so what I want to do as president, and I'll check it as well, is that we have to create opportunities for small wins. Mm-hmm. Small wins, and you identify a couple of people that are superstars around the campus, in terms of faculty, and to get things moving.
Absolutely. And guys, going forward, when you talk about those sort of moments and the milestones, and you put them in context like the small wins, do your best when we're on this panel to also give a very specific example of that. And we're going to move on to step number 2 here, just because we got to get through these steps today. That's my goal, right? But more importantly also is to get your feedback. So I'll be out in the audience in a moment. I love being Phil Donahue, so you'll see me out there. My shoes will be blazing all over the place, so be ready for that too. Connect with entrepreneurs in the community. So let's talk for a second, Betty, if you would, about how you did that. How did you bring the entrepreneurs in your community into this pledge and also into the community college?
So I really place a lot of value on advisory committees when it comes to our programs. I think they're essential for us to remain relevant in the community. The problem with advisory committees is that over time, they tend to not be asked to do very much. And if we don't have them asked to do anything, then the people who are on those kind of filter away, and because they don't see any value in being there. And so we end up oftentimes with a lot of adjunct faculty members that make up advisory committees. Well, adjunct faculty members have a vested interest in making sure that whoever's running that program likes them and they continue to teach. And so they may or may not be willing to give you really the kind of hard feedback and information that you need to remain relevant. So we completely changed the structure of our advisory committees at Hawking College as part of this pledge. And what we did is we said that the advisory committees have to be composed of actual employers, and they have to be large and small. They can be from our region, but they don't have to be, because every one of our students will not graduate and stay where we live now. We want them to stay. We don't want to see a brain drain. We want to see the economies grow locally, but we are a very mobile society, and for us to think that some of our students aren't going to go elsewhere is kind of crazy. So are we meeting industry needs across the country? And so we have, for example, our broadcast program is it's a film program, and we have advisory committee members coast to coast. And in Ohio, we only have 2 advisory committee members because the industry, it's a very entrepreneurial type industry in Ohio. They're small businesses, and they're able to really give that entrepreneurial zest to the advice that they give. But then we have some major employers on both coasts that give advice as it relates to folks who might want to go to work for bigger organizations. So the other piece of this, I'd say, is those advisory committees also get it that this entrepreneurial thinking isn't just about being an entrepreneur and owning your own business. It's also about being able to contribute in that same kind of thinking in larger organizations and the value that that brings. So for us, connecting to the entrepreneurial community has really been through the advisory committee.
Okay, great. And I'd love to hear from you, Steve, if you don't mind, an example of where when you connected to the community, it just kind of blew up and wasn't quite what you expected it to be. And it could be positive or negative, but do your best to try to think of where you had to sort of re-engineer what you were thinking about with that board.
Sure. We have an advisory committee as well that's made up of community entrepreneurs from our 9-county area in north central Iowa. And what we faced is we've had a major donor that has continued to provide support to us over time. And as we've tried to expand services and recognize the fact that he's 90 years old, we needed to start to figure out a different way to support the good work that we did. So one of the first things we did is we organized a gala, and we just had it here a couple of weeks ago, where we could recognize our legendary funder and supporter of entrepreneurship in the state of Iowa. And then we created an award system, and we invited community leaders and entrepreneurs to be recognized for their good work in the community, trying to raise that awareness within our community. And a piece of that was, we started for the first time in the history of our college, is going door to door with our banks and our communities, our county supervisors, our cities, and asking them to actually provide financial support for the work that we're doing to start, grow, and support businesses as they work up and down Main Street. And an interesting part of that is they said, if we can't support this, what would we support? And you just don't think about that. But again, it's bringing this mindset out into the community and letting them understand that they play a significant role in this. And in fact, we had more referrals from the banks in about a 2-week period of time than we probably had over a year. They had businesses up and down their main streets that were upside down, needed support that we could provide, and we came in and really worked with that. So you just have to ask. I think we underestimate that, and we think we can do all this on our own, but the community's there to help you if you just go out amongst them.
Yeah, definitely. So as I promised, I'm coming out into the audience just because I want, so far we've covered some pretty straightforward sort of things, but you may have other pressing questions that are on your mind that give us a direction when it comes to these first 2 steps, which is based around teams and based around the community. What are some of the things, if you have them on the top of your mind, or you have a question related to that, something that we've covered so far? You have one? You guys feel like you're in class now? Excellent, love that.
I submitted it through that. Go ahead. Okay. Could you give a specific example of how you have infused entrepreneurship in an interdisciplinary way across your campus?
I have a great example of this. So we run entrepreneurial ventures throughout our technical programs. So for example, we run a restaurant. We run Lake Snowden. It's a recreational facility with a water park. Our natural resource program runs that. So we have these entrepreneurial ventures. We have a dog grooming shop and a boarding kennel for animal-assisted therapy. So these programs are running entrepreneurial ventures. They're producing P&Ls. They are dealing with staffing issues. They have a revenue stream to offset the cost of the programs. And so that's a great, that's all very entrepreneurial. Our business program, our folks came to us one day and, they asked me what I thought about the business program. Now, this is my field of study. And I had to be real candid and say, I think it's boring. And that got people's attention. And so they said, well, boring, well, what would you do different? And I said, well, I'd have people run businesses. It's a business program. And they said, but, we teach people about, how to do other things, like the business programs that run are all these technical things, right, that they're out there doing business. I said, so what are you all doing, consulting? So they've now formed consulting teams, the business program, the freshman students, first semester. So you get engaged and you get excited about what you're doing. You might not know anything yet, but you're starting to get that idea that you could do these kinds of things. You could have input about staffing. You could have input about pricing. You could look at a P&L and tell people it's doing well, it's not doing well. So they start that as a freshman now, and they actually consult to all the entrepreneurial ventures within the institution. Now, they get better over time. Freshmen don't know a lot, but they start asking a lot of questions. And as they then take courses, their accounting course, that P&L begins to make a lot more sense. When they start taking that management course, that staffing starts making a lot more sense to them. And so this has been a really great opportunity. It's a new program for us, so we don't have a lot of feedback on it yet. But what we're starting to hear from students is that the students who are running the entrepreneurial venture, as well as the business students, are getting to know each other. They're developing friendships across programs that they didn't have before, and they're working a lot more out of class, which is what we'd like to see happen around both of their majors. So it's pretty exciting to watch this. It's just in first launch this fall, so we'll see how it goes.
That's excellent. And I know you guys have so many examples, because whenever you're building something like entrepreneurship, there's always people coming and like running to help out, and then other people who have new ideas, and then those new ideas collide, which is what entrepreneurship is about. But when you talk about industry in your region, how did you segment and really understand your industries in order to come up with a strategic way of approaching your industries in your particular regions? I'm particularly interested in that for my own purposes, so I really look forward to your answers. Yeah. Start with you, Garrett.
Back in the recession, we were devastated in terms of what happened with furniture and textiles in our region of North Carolina. And as a result of that, it really opened up an opportunity to have dialogue with the CEOs of our industry in terms of what they needed to look like and what they expected from us going forward. So we really turned ourselves inside out. We sit down with the executives of the furniture industry and several of other of our manufacturing areas and said, you know what, we can sit here and deliver programs all day for you, but we really need to know what brings value to you. And so we allowed that industry to work in tandem with us to design a curriculum called the Catawba Valley Furniture Academy. Since we opened that academy in 2012, we've had a 100% employment rate of everybody that's gone through there. You show me a program that has a 100% employment rate, I'll show you a program that's sustainable, because your partnership is much more than collaboration. It's deeper, it's richer, and it has meaning to the individuals who participate in it. Well, from the Catawba Valley Furniture Academy, now we've spun a manufacturing academy, we've spun a construction academy, we've spun a coding academy, we've spun a healthcare academy, being driven by the individuals that are leading these organizations and saying, this is how you can create value for us in our workforce. And there was a conversation yesterday, and it was mentioned that, you know, if you really look at how higher education is designed, if we don't start doing things in a more entrepreneurial spirit quickly, we're going to become obsolete. And there are articles in Inside Education and everywhere about the failing of higher education. And it's upon us as community colleges. We are the U-boats. We can turn on a dime. We can affect our communities, and we know how to solve problems within our communities, and that has to be the commitment from that first entrepreneurial insight and pledge to create that value of what it is that brings value within your community.
Yeah. At Pierpont, I tell you what, you know, as all of you, we do a lot of things and have a lot of relationships and partnerships with the local economy. I'll give you an example of one that we have with First Energy. It's a power company. It's a very unique, I believe, partnership. We have what's called a Power System Institute, and First Energy has been very innovative and involved in